Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
Welcome back to the Larkcast, where your hosts have coordinated their outfits with stripes. But the rule is always the stripes can't be going the same way. Yeah. So I'm wearing horizontal stripes today, and Russ is wearing vertical stripes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll know what we're talking about. But for those of you who are just listening to the audio, you're going to have to trust us on this. We're both wearing stripes.
You're missing out. Missing on that moment where I logged into my computer and I saw Tony and I immediately went, oh shit.
Kind of close in color too. You got kind of like the salmon thing going on, and I'm just just brown.
Yeah, just softening my image, man, as I get older in years, moving into this new grandpa status. Sort of embracing the salmons in life.
Dude, I smoked some salmon the other day. 2 big fillets.
Come on.
Real simple, dude. Lemon juice, salt, pepper, little basil. Real good.
Good. Money.
So good.
Yeah, I haven't done too much, man, with the food game here lately. A lot of just craziness going on. But I do have one really cool story to share, man, just in regards to a quick little announcement of what happened yesterday.
What are you doing, dude? Are you going straight from salmon to baptisms?
Oh yeah. Well, they both have like water involved.
Let's hear it, dude. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So there's a local cigar bar here that I do some work out of, meet some people, pass on some good news. Wrote this book that's coming out here recently, literally sitting there. But just there's some different conversations there, and then some people who've been passing on good news who are grabbing on to right to who Jesus is from this place, finding all kinds of conversations that are kicking up, man. And then of course other, friends as well. And kind of just said, you know what, let's just head down to the beach on Sunday. Everybody's asking to get baptized now. They're coming to me with these questions. So it's like the most unplanned ministry event in my life. Like the total opposite of everything you did in the past, right? Like in the name of baptism. And I was like, yeah.
We're like you were scrolling announcements on the screen before service. Baptisms are coming up. Sign up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you would have all like these meetings, and then you would have like pre-meetings, right? Like before it. And in this round, bro.
And you had to like interview people to make sure they say it right.
Yep. Yep. And I just said, you know what? Bowditch Beach. I'll be down there 9 a.m. Sunday. Come on down. And dude, this crowd of people showed up, man. And just got a chance to baptize 10 people yesterday that we've been connecting with, and it was a good day, man. It's a good morning.
That's pretty fantastic. I saw some of the posts from I didn't know everybody, but I knew the Chandlers and their son.
Yeah.
Ronan got baptized. I thought that was pretty cool, and just seeing
dude, that was such a joy.
A whole crowd of people. So that made me happy. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of I went home like, okay. A lot of things that I've been able to do and enjoy lately have sort of fallen by the wayside, man, just with all the things going on in life. So that was just a pretty cool moment for me to just kick back relax in that. And the only downside is I woke up like straight up like sore this morning, like I just ran a marathon
Mm. You were fighting those
because
waves.
fighting the waves and then just had a sandbar that was going way too far. And if I would have gone out past it to, to get deep enough to baptize everybody, we would have been dodging boats. So, so we had to like kneel down and try to do it in more shallow water.
Yeah.
We did have one good wipeout, like just ate it, dude, on one. That was pretty awesome.
You ate it?
We both did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Heather was one of the ladies connected to the cigar bar, and yeah, and it was rather comical.
Man, I hate
But if you
when
can't have fun with baptisms, like what can you have fun with, right?
yeah. I just hate it when the ocean decides to baptize people before you get a chance to do it. It's like, oh, hey, stop. I didn't say in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit yet.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, I didn't count.
Dude,
Yeah.
I had in my early days of ministry, um, we would do this like big lake baptism thing, and like everybody would save their baptism for the lake baptism because it was like such a cool thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
so we were out there like, dude, just like baptizing people like left and right. So like we're trying to get through this line. So I'm like, instead of I'm just like, in the name of the Father, Son, Spirit, bam, just dunking fools. And I had this pastor pull me aside and he's like, hey, you know, the Bible says in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You
Mm,
can't just say the Spirit. And
yeah.
I was like young, I'm like, okay. So like, did they count or no?
They did.
Shit, I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've been
man.
wondering this whole time if it counted.
Yeah.
I just didn't say the words right.
Yeah. Or it could just be another one of those cases where you and I and many others were handed something in the scriptures that were descriptive, um, but somehow someone turned it into something that was prescriptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it exactly like this.
Yeah.
Because, in the scriptures, but also in the name of that, we're going to have this entire thing that we do that's not in the scriptures and act as if it is.
So funny. You can't help but laugh at it,
You
right?
can't.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we have an entire system by which we operate that's nowhere seen here. But hey, forget about that.
Jesus
Forget
didn't
about
do
that,
any of
folks.
this.
Oh man. But no, seriously, it was it was a good day.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I just
I
needed
love
some
that.
salmon, some smoked salmon to top it off, man. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. All right, well, we're continuing in James, and we're in verse 9. I think we're just going to go to 11 today. And I love this little uh little section here because it was a little bit of appreciation moment from me to James because
Hmm.
James has he's being a little sneaky here in a creative
Yeah.
way, and I like it. He's delivering the punchline before the premise. So the punchline comes before the premise. So it reads like this: let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation. The lowly brother would be someone who is poor,
Right.
like physically poor, materially poor. Someone who doesn't have a lot. That's the
Hmm.
lowly brother. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation and the rich in his humiliation. And you're like, what? No, like from an earthly standpoint, the lowly brother is the one who's humble because he doesn't have a lot. And the rich person is the one who's exalted because he's doing well in life.
Hmm.
But James says the opposite. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation and the rich in his humiliation. Why? Because like a flower of the grass, he will pass away. Here's where he gets a little bit dramatic. Verse 11. For the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass. Its flower fails and its beauty perishes. Dude, James needs the right lyrics for like metalcore bands.
Yeah.
So also will the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits. So why is the lowly brother exalted and the rich man humiliated? Because all this stuff is just gonna fade one day. We're all gonna die.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a metal song.
Punchline before the premise. I like it, James.
Yeah, I gotta salute him on this one. I'm gonna say out of everything I've seen in James, this might be one of my favorites because it's you know, it's yeah, it's just reality, man. It's just a quick dose of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, like look, I have to agree with you about him getting a little bit like over the top with some of his descriptors there. Like this dude definitely probably lived in Florida.
For the
All of
sun
you
rises
people,
with its scorching heat.
yeah, all of you people out here just spending so much time and energy on beautifying your gardens, not even realizing when left to itself, the sun rises. It's scorching me. Like, yeah, no, I get it, man.
It's so true, and I think these words are particularly relevant in a consumeristic, culture that we find ourselves in. It's so easy to get caught up in, in this game, what you
Yeah,
have, what you don't have,
yeah,
um, to compare yourself, to others in all kinds of things. I do it in business sometimes. I
hmm
do it creatively, um, financially. You just think like, oh man, like I'd be so much better off if I was this or that or this or that or didn't have this or, had a rich grandpa who can just, give me a lot of seed money to like start a business or, whatever.
yeah, yeah. It's an endless. If I just had,
Yeah.
for sure. Followed by look at what I do have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say our sticky fingers are motivated for they come with a desire for control, always. And I think what James is getting at here is like for some it's approval or applause, or it's fame, it's power. And I think what he's showing is like in this case, dude, it's money. And I would say it for everyone in the world, man, that one is a legit like fear factor because it's so equated not just with a picture of who you are and why you matter, but we definitely all live, I feel like, with that fear of like, well, what if I don't have enough? What if it runs out? You know what I'm saying? Like where you start to get into like the practical elements of it. But I think what James is showing is like the love for this, the love for money, right? It's it's never going to deliver. And when you leave this earth, right, he's very practical. You're not taking a single penny with you.
Mm-hmm.
There's no U-Haul behind your hearse. So why are you spending your whole life chasing this thing and grasping at it with everything that you have to the extent of it not only crushing you and then you involved in things that crush others, but all this just to leave here, right? Like that's where we're at. And so, like you said, he doesn't pull any punches about it, man.
Yeah, and of course there's a counter to what James is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Always, but from James' perspective, um, it's a very brutal reality about life, a sobering thought for sure.
Mm-hmm.
James doesn't strike me as someone who would be that fun to hang out with.
No, no,
You're definitely not gonna, go grab drinks with James. He's not on the list of homies to link up with, for a dude weekend. Um,
nah.
but he is gonna hit you and shoot you straight.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he probably would have been like a really good character, like in a Western movie. You know, like he's the Tommy Lee Jones, like in Lonesome Dove.
I've
That's
never
kind
seen
of
that one.
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of who I feel like who James reminds me of. But I think what I love about this, man, is it really does get us into some practical things. And I don't mean practical things that help us become something better. Um, I'm just talking about some practical things that can help us enjoy um, good things and endure hard times in life. And the love and pursuit of money, man, is definitely a real slippery slope that I think when you when you dive into it, like it can teach you a lot about just society in general, man. So, like looking at this passage, I kind of dug into some stuff that I remember from a few years back where NPR had done like a really cool take on All Things Considered, where they were discussing all the research that surrounds like social class and generosity. So, without like boring everybody and going into all the details, I'll just say this. They found that people of low income give upwards of 5% of what they have away. And people of great wealth statistically only give about 2.4%.
Hmm.
So it was weird, right, in this like vast study to find that people of low means, percentage wise, gave twice as much as people with great means. And you kind of wonder if like that's something that's just been true of society, right, throughout time. You've got this love for control, you've got this love for the accolades and the applause, right? Of other people. It's where you find your sense of belonging. It becomes like a hit, like a high, basically. You know what I mean? The validation that you get from chasing it and having it and showing it off. And then you factor in just the normal human tendency of like fear of loss, right? That gets thrown in there. But the one unique thing that they found, which might tie into what you just said about James giving, you know, what'd you say, like the premise, right? Like right up
It
front.
gives the punchline before the premise. Yeah.
Sorry, the punchline. Got those flipped. So when you look at that, he in the study they found that people of lower means found they find a sense of security and happiness in social involvement. They're far more likely to depend on other people, basically. And so they live their lives far more connected in relationships to other people. And so not only do they have less, but they give more and live with a greater sense of happiness than people who have a lot,
Hmm.
who are oftentimes more distracted and isolated in their pursuit of life,
Hmm.
almost seeing other people as either a means that gets me there or something that's keeping me from where I'm trying to go.
Hmm.
So people just become like a commodity you use, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like a person to love and live life with
Hmm.
and to need each other with.
Yeah. Dang, man. Um, it's such a good, it's such a good thing to consider. Also, too, like when he's talking about like the flower fails, you know,
Yeah.
like just the shortness of life, the brevity of life.
Hmm.
And, you know, our oldest is 18 now. And I think that they say like once your kid hits 18, you've spent about 90% of the time that you're going to spend with them up
Mm.
until then. And there's nothing like just time passing by and one day you wake up and like you got a freshman in college, you got a junior and a freshman in high school, and my fourth one is, you know, in her last year of grade school, and it's like, dude, it's flying by. And you know, just the shortness of life and
Mm.
what matters most, and just that brevity, just that analogy of a flower and grass passing away in its season. It reorients your perspective, you know, these sort of
Yeah.
sobering, punchy thoughts like James is bringing. And a lot of us rarely pause to consider these things.
Yeah, dude. Start bringing like the pictures of the kids into all this. It'll definitely sober you up, man, to Just like you said, the realization of things that are good and beautiful and real, but also fleeting.
Hmm.
And so time, right, becomes a precious commodity in that, with your kids, man. And I think what James is getting at here is he's saying that generosity can almost become like a precious commodity for us. It's not that money is in any way a bad thing.
Hmm.
It's not, you don't find in the scriptures where God looks down upon those who have worked hard and have made a lot of money. I mean, I know like in society, there's definitely like a feeling that surrounds that, like somehow Jesus is only for like the poor and, and he hates the rich. And it's like, no, that's just not true.
Yeah.
Because while I had mentioned those statistics earlier about the poor giving away more in terms of percentage of what they have, it's the wealthy, right, who make up the billions and billions of dollars every year that are given to charitable, right, organizations. Billions, bro, upon billions yearly. And so there's something to be said, man, about people who work hard and gain much. But there's also something very beautiful about understanding, right, that this is fleeting. This is fleeting, like time with my kids. And so, in the same way that I'm going to try to cherish those moments when I can get them with my children, is the same way I can cherish these riches that I've amassed and put them to use in a way that really blesses others, especially when you get into like things that are eternal, you know?
Hmm.
That seems to be a pretty important piece, man. Like, I feel like the whole scenario around this reminds me of the parable that Jesus told in Luke 12, about the guy that, the rich dude, the rich ruler, he's his he's got a lot and his barns are full. And so he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna tear these things down and build bigger ones. And I'm gonna fill those too. That's like, it's a story that Jesus tells. And it's kind of like, on the back of like some different warnings that he's saying. And if you just go to the passage in verse 13, and it says that there was someone in the crowd who says to Jesus, hey, seriously, now that you're kind of getting into some of these practical things, can you tell my brother to divide his inheritance with me? It's like such an honest question. And I feel like if you take what you just brought up earlier from James, like he would look at him and say, let the lowly exalt in, right? That's kind of where you would find that line. And so Jesus replies to him in verse 14. He says, man, listen, who appointed me a judge? Sorry, I'm distracted now. My wife just walked in here with my grandson. She's making faces and swaying back and forth and mocking me as I'm literally trying to
To
read this
record a
passage.
podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, Grandma, hold off for another 5 minutes.
Amazing. Love you. Okay. Be safe. She wanted me to say goodbye, but she's literally straight up like, I'm just like mocking everything I'm saying, dude.
That's Krista Johnson for
I'm
you.
like doing my best. I'm literally like sweating right now. I'm like doing my best to like concentrate on what I'm trying to say.
Scorching heat, dude. Scorching
Scorching
heat.
heat. So Jesus, he's like, listen, man, did some, judge appoint me to oversee this thing between you guys? No. So listen up, watch out, Jesus says. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. It's that simple. It's that practical. And then he told him this parable. He said, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. And then he says, well, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself, what you have exhausted your whole life, right? Gaining. This is how it will be for whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich, it says, toward God, which literally the Greek translation there is rich into God. Someone who is not finding their sense of all that they are, the wealth, right? In their relationship with him. Instead, they're trying to find that through the control that they can amass over monetary things.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I thought about that. Like Jesus is saying the same thing James is saying. And what's funny though is when Jesus says it, everybody jumps to like that very ending and they're like, yeah, see, he was doing that. And so God's like, I'm taking your life tonight. And I'm like, that's not what it says. He's just bringing up the reality of you don't know, right? When your time's done here.
Mm.
And so when that night comes, which could be tonight,
Right.
have you not just been a fool with all this? Is this not something that you're seeing? It's it's like a really good warning, you know what I'm saying, for all of us who like feel like this imaginary life raft that we have is taking on more water than we can bail. It's
Mm.
like the time the time will end.
Yeah.
And I think there's an invitation here to embrace what we have. I think
Yep.
there's an invitation here to embrace the limitation of the control that we think we have
Mm.
and really see it, right? For for the nothing that it is.
Yeah.
I think there's an invitation to take these things and to become generous with them, finding that there is far more life and happiness to be found in our dependence upon one another and the blessing of others than the endless effort to just keep building bigger barns to store all of our impulse purchases.
Yeah. And yeah, contentment,
Yeah.
to be content, to be rich into God, kind of goes
Yep.
back to the last passage about not being double-minded, meaning like you just know in your head and your heart that um your whole existence is dependent
Yep.
on him who is life. And there's a ditch for the lowly person to fall into, of this like victim mentality, to not be,
Mhm.
embracing your exaltation that this life is temporary, and one day we will be exalted, in the new heavens and the new earth.
Yep.
And the blindness that riches, can bring. And I think it's just very I think appropriate, to bring up that Jesus himself, he emptied himself when he came here. He became lowly,
Yeah.
and he put himself in the lowliest place, which was, a sinner's cross, the cross of a thief and a murderer and a sinner.
Mm.
And, this is this sort of identification with the the lowest of the low, where Jesus puts himself as this main crux,
Yeah.
this very place that we all come to discover him. He wasn't shot in a Rolls Royce. He wasn't he wasn't poisoned in a throne,
Yeah.
but rather he was crucified on a Roman torture device. And
Yep.
you can miss it if you're poor and you're lowly too, by buying into the same lie. It's the same lie. The rich and the
Yep.
poor, when we're deceived, we're buying into the same lie. It's just that the
Yep.
lowly person doesn't have what the rich person has. So the lowly person's looking at what the world offers and was like, man, I wish I had it. And the rich person is like, man, I have it. But both need to be reminded that this life is super temporary. And really, all these categories, whether it be numbers in your bank account, cars in your garage, homes that are,
Mm,
owned, under your name, it's all just, temporary and fleeting. And at the end of the day, we're men and we're women and we're dust. From the dust we came, from the dust will return. And what James is saying, if you could layer, since he doesn't mention the cross, this
yep.
this paragraph is very cross-ish in that it's reminding us, we're in the most important category in life in terms of um, what you actually need to have a relationship with him to be included in what God is doing in the world. None of these things, none
Yeah.
of these material things matter at all. In fact, even if you practice a minimal life in your minimalism and in simplicity and in your charity, all these things are great, but you can't do enough of it to find yourself included, to find yourself
No.
in Christ. Only Christ can get you in Christ. Only something he's done.
This is such a valid point, man. That you brought up with like the minimalism, because you're right. Whether it's in the extravagant pursuit of more and more and more, or this very disciplined minimalistic life, um, neither one of those are of any value to someone who's in need of resurrection.
Yes.
And what's crazy is in both pursuits, there's no contentment. Isn't that weird?
There,
Like
yeah, there
they're
can
not
not
content.
be. Right.
Yeah. And so then you run and run and run for the illusion of that. And so it's almost like you can run towards, this route or this route, but they neither one of them lead to life, because neither one lead to death. I think is what, I love in what you were saying. Neither one lead to death. And that's really the crux of it, right? Like Jesus is the richest. This is the Son of God. This is my beloved Son in whom I am all pleased, the Father declares. This is God in the flesh. This is the richest man who ever lived, right? Who goes to the grave with nothing. And so, whether it's through James or even in that short parable that Jesus tells, I think that's what we're finding from him is that, man, we can spend our whole lives in pursuit of wealth, or we can embrace the life that comes with the poverty of death. You know? It's like Jesus is the one who made his grave. He literally made his grave in, in the death of a world of just drowning in moral poverty. The wicked, you could say. He made his grave with the wicked and all their moral poverty. And he made his grave with the rich man and the death of all of his possessing everything he could get his hands on. He makes his death with both, man. And so I think what we find with James is an invitation to find a happiness and a contentment in the here and now. This isn't about getting into heaven, becoming someone that God loves. Like, as you said, this is about finding a contentment and a joy with what little we have or how much we have. And then I think there's an invitation to be generous with either,
Mm.
because there's something about participating in the life of the Trinity and other people, right? That's so beautiful. But if you miss it, you will miss a lot of happiness. But the one good thing we can say is it will be turned to good no matter what. I think
Mm.
that's the crazy, right? The crazy good news of the gospel is that Jesus waits for us in our deaths. Like literally, there's nothing that you need to do except die
Mm.
to be with him.
Yeah, and James
We
is
say
saying,
it like
"Hey,
that, it's like, wow.
Yeah, he's giving us a little, just a spoonful of death, right here.
Yeah.
The soberness, the sober mindedness
Yep.
of the futility of it all, which leads us to good news. I just wish James would make the jump to good news here, but
Yeah, no, he's not doing it, man. He's not doing it. I had somebody again ask me uh why we chose this book. And I said, well, what do you do with it? He said, man, I just ignore it. I was like,
I
well,
just
there's actually
ignore
been a
it.
lot of scholars that don't believe it should be included in in the canon. It's like you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's like, no, I think there is wisdom in this. It's like I don't think James is laying out a foundation for us in the good news of Jesus. I think he's showing us the things that will keep you from the joy of dancing on that foundation.
Yeah.
Like, see the futility, guys. Just see it. Be generous. You're free to do so. Be content. He's present, right?
And good luck with that scorching heat.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.